to going to rehab, finding God, and turning my life around. I am Anthony Valdez, and this is my story.
All right, all right. So what's up, man? What you been up to?
Oh man, it's been a long time. I appreciate you coming out and finally getting this together, man.
I know it. I
It's
know
been a
it.
long time, and I know
Yeah.
people's been waiting on this to come out.
Yeah, definitely.
Feels good to be able to be on the other side sharing my
alright.
story.
So let's start from your childhood. Tell me what your childhood was like.
Um, my childhood was pretty normal. My mother was a daycare worker. My father was a firefighter. Both of them were big drinkers at this time. I was around a lot of partying growing up, a lot of violence. My dad was abusive to my mother. So at an early age, I was really brought onto the partying lifestyle. I began drinking and using drugs at a very young age. In a Native American community, we're all real prone to this type of behavior going on. It seemed normal to us at this time. It was pretty decent. We wasn't poor, we wasn't rich. We lived a pretty normal life for the most part.
Yeah, I remember you had a pool and everything in the back.
Yeah. We were pretty. We had a swimming pool. Had a pretty good childhood. Things weren't too bad. Like I said, a lot was hidden back then.
Okay.
My parents were into the partying lifestyle. My mother eventually stopped drinking. My dad was a Vietnam vet, so he used a lot of the alcohol to cover up some of the stuff that he endured over there. He ended up drinking himself to death when I was around the age of 17, so we lost him at a very young age. I lost my father. Other than that, my childhood was pretty good, except for the drinking and the abuse. But that wasn't all the time. It was off and on. So my childhood was all right for the most part.
Okay. So when did your drug use and drinking start, and who introduced you to that life?
It started at a young age, probably around 14, 15. My aunt and uncle were methamphetamine cooks, so I was around that lifestyle at a young age. So I was introduced to methamphetamine at the age of about 14 or 15. I participated in meth cooks at a young age as well. My uncle was eventually arrested and got 25 years in the penitentiary for manufacturing methamphetamine. So that put a halt on the drug activity.
Did he do the whole 25?
Yeah, he did 25. It was federal.
So he's back in or,
He's back in the world now,
uh,
and he's actually recovered too. So
nice, yeah.
so that did a lot of changing for him.
Okay.
It was a long time to do in penitentiary for
Fed?
Fed.
Yeah, because back in the day, they give Fed time for that kind of crime.
Yeah. The
And
higher
then it
crime.
went state, then after a while.
Right. So there were some other things that went on during the arrest of him. He tried to run a cop over with his car, so that tacked on some more years. He also was involved in a robbery gone bad and ended up shooting a guy. Well, got self-defense on that, so got lucky on that. So, yeah, but like I said, my aunt and uncle introduced me to a lot of the drug use at a young age.
Okay, so let's talk about your teenage years and tell me a little bit about that.
My teenage years, like I said, I was introduced to drugs and drug dealing at a young age. I was also introduced to a lot of gang activity. I joined a gang at 13, a homegrown gang. Most of the people that were involved in that ended up either getting out of that lifestyle or went to the penitentiary. I didn't get out of that lifestyle. I continued on and joined a more national gang called the Gangster Disciples. I did that for pretty much till 2021. I mean, a long time, like 20-something years involved in the gang violence. So, and so that was about it on my teenage years. A lot of drug use and a lot of drinking, a lot of gang banging. So I was introduced to a very violent lifestyle at a young age.
That was the early 2000s?
About 1999 to 2000,
Okay,
when all this
okay.
started, yeah. Wild lifestyle.
The gangster 90s.
Right, right. It was big in the 90s, man. Very big.
Ooh-wee. So I know at one time you were a member of a gang. Tell me more about that and how that it got started.
Like I said, I was jumped into a local gang that was kind of homegrown. At this time in the 90s, everybody was gang banging. It was something that everybody was doing. I eventually phased out of that gang and joined a bigger gang. And at the age of like 16 or 17, started, I was introduced from a guy that was from Milwaukee, where Gangster Disciples were a pretty prominent gang up there towards the Chicago area and Indiana and them areas. He had moved here and introduced me to that lifestyle, the teachings of Larry Hoover, and I started learning about it and really gravitated towards that type of lifestyle and continued doing that for a long time in my life.
Okay. Man. So how many years you think you did with the gang?
I'm gonna say 25, 26 years.
When you went to prison, did you have to run with them?
That was the confusing part there. When I went to prison, I was a member of a prominently black gang, the Gangster Disciples, and I'm Native American.
Yeah.
So it caused a lot of
Commotion
when I got there, which it's a freelance gang, so they didn't really trip about it, but the natives were tripping about it but it was kind of one of them things where I had to explain to them, I didn't come to prison and join a gang. I was already in a gang before I got to prison, so I've been gangbanging for a long time.
Did you have marks in your body?
Yeah, I got tattoos. Got GD.
Yeah,
I never
about
identified.
GD.
Yeah, so there was no hiding it, so I didn't even plan on hiding it when I got there. So I just, manned up when I got there. And then what's crazy about it, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the interview, but I ended up becoming second in charge of the natives there. So I was vice president there. So started out sergeant of arms.
Native culture strong in prison.
Yeah,
in the Mexican community in prison, we was allied. We weren't the same gang, but we ran together. If anything go down,
Right.
So I can understand where you're coming from. And,
Yeah, it was the same thing where I was at. We ran with La Raza and Serrano. We backed each other or something like that. So
okay.
we all had the same functions together. They would come to our Native Hope is what we called it. Was church, basically a gang meeting.
The Raza with Sureños?
Yeah, they would actually come in and have their
and
gang.
be in peace.
Yeah, they would have their gang.
Strong.
Right. They would attend our sweats, all that stuff. So.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, and actually, at one time, our sergeant of arms, after I moved up from sergeant of arms to vice president, a guy became. He was our sergeant of arms, but he was actually a Serrano. So.
Wow.
We kind of intertwined that well there.
Yeah.
At the prison I was at.
Real blood running through his veins.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so tell me when you started getting into trouble with the law.
I started that at an early age too. I catch minor charges like DUIs. After my father had passed when I was 17, when I turned 18, I inherited from his death $50,000. So I kind of went wild there. Bought me a new car, purchased a home at a young age. Really got into the drug dealing, but didn't catch any major charges. Just DUI, public intoxication, and
Did
assault
you
and battery.
started with major drugs off the rip, or you started with weed and then worked your way to cocaine, and then
It progressed as I went. It started with the drinking and the marijuana, and then eventually tried cocaine. And then, like I said, I was already using meth at 14, so that was off and on though at a young age. And then when I hit about 19 or 20, I really started heavy into the meth use. So it was really available to me all the time. I mean, my aunt and uncles had it like it was nothing. So it was introduced me as a young age, and I really picked up on it.
so
Really
when I
fast.
met you, you was already
Yeah, when I met
OG.
you, yeah, I'd already been cooking at that time. I had quit when I met you. I had let that lifestyle alone
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I knew that the charges for that were very high, and I didn't want to get involved in. Plus, like my uncle had went to jail, so I really didn't have no guidance in that area at that time. But I get into that later on in my life.
I know that you were involved in a situation where your first baby's mother was murdered. Will you speak on that for a little bit?
Yeah, it's kind of a touchy subject, but when I was around 15, I had ended up getting a girl pregnant. We ended up having my first daughter, and all of a sudden, she went missing. The mother went missing she was missing for 2 years. It ended up two people I thought were my friends that were acquaintances, other gang members that I ran with, were eventually caught and convicted of her murder. And both of them got life and no parole. So that was a very hectic time in life, being that young, involved in a situation like that. Um, but I made it through it, and by the grace of God, I mean, I didn't get too involved with that. So
Let's talk about you getting to a young adult and how addiction is beginning to shape your life at this point.
okay, I ended up having a child, another child, a boy, with a girl that was my high school sweetheart. Um, At this time, she was leaving my house and got into a car accident, and her arm had to be amputated. So it was a kind of two tragic things happened in a row for me. We stuck it out, ended up having our child. I don't want to get too much into that on her because we kind of separated at that time and haven't really had much contact since then. So I'm gonna leave that as kind of a touchy subject for me.
So was you ever sober or just pretty much using drugs through this time?
I went back and forth on the drugs. Like I said, with my first baby mama, she didn't care for the drugs and that lifestyle too much, so I would go back and forth. Wasn't until I met my second baby mother, and we ended up getting married and getting a house. I had a job, was living pretty normal at the time. I thought I was living normal. I quit the meth. Was still drinking a little bit, smoking marijuana. I became addicted to pain pills at this time. I could still function with the pain pills. My life was kind of sort of better at this time, but when I ran out of the pills, the withdrawal started, and I could not function without them. And it was horrible, horrible, horrible lifestyle. Yeah, but for the most part, I was halfway sober, I guess. I didn't think painkillers were as bad as the hard drugs at this time. But,
Right.
I mean, we never know what life's like on certain drugs. I mean, I guess there's no difference in methamphetamines and pain pills. I mean, I didn't know this at the time. Man, hard life. Hard life.
Man, tell me about it.
Yeah. I know you know.
No,
We've been through
I
this
used
together.
to make a peel soup.
Right.
And then once I do the peel soup, I would throw the heroin on top.
Oh no, I remember that. I remember
And
that.
then voila, peel soup.
Yeah. I love it.
I know you were cooking meth at one point. Tell me how that got started.
That goes back to my early childhood when my aunt and uncle were cooks. I would help, break pills down, break batteries down for the cook the next night. You know, to help my uncle. I thought this stuff was normal. I didn't know that, when you're being raised around it. So I had learned how to do it at a young age, but never really got into that. Didn't really care too much. I don't know if people know, but back in these days, there wasn't no ice around. It was all Sudafed dope. So somebody had to cook it up in backyards with household chemicals, stuff like that. So I learned that at a young age, and it wasn't until I had split up with my second baby mother and met a girl. Got her own place here in Lawton. She had never tried any meth or anything like that before, and I eventually talked her into trying meth. We started using, and I had a great idea that maybe if I just cooked the meth, we wouldn't have to get involved in all the. So I started cooking meth, and I learned some other ways to cook it, not just the old anhydrous way. I learned some other ways to cook it too that were faster and more mobile, and I could cook as much Sudafed as I had or didn't have. Either way, it was just more. I guess, suitable for the laws that were on the Sudafed at this time. So it's called shake and bake. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but yeah, it's very dangerous. It's not for amateur cooks. I don't know why people think that they can just jump into cooking shake and bake. It's very dangerous.
Burn a house down.
Like that. So I ended up doing that for probably a year or so, and then was also still involved in the ice trade at the same time. So me and a good friend of mine, he's actually one of my dealers, got the great idea that maybe we could take the old P2P ice that had went out of date and lost its shelf life and recook it and make it good again, which we ended up starting to do that, and that's what I ended up catching a case on, was manufacturing methamphetamines, and ended up going to prison on that. So I caught 12 felonies during that case, and I ended up going to prison for doing a 10-year sentence. I did 3 years on that. So, yeah.
So you ended up in jail, then prison. Tell me about that experience.
Like I said, I was involved in a street gang before I got to prison, and I knew that when I got there that my race was going to want me to choose where to go. So I was already worried about that when I went to prison. So I'd already decided in my head that I was going to run with my race when I got there. Didn't know what to expect when I got to prison, but when I showed up there, it wasn't anything like I expected. I ended up going to a minimum/medium security prison, which had a boot camp on one side of the yard that you had to go through before you made it to the other unit. So when I get there, they're marching, doing cadence calls, military style stuff going on. So I was like, what is this? What did I sign up for? Before long though, I was right out there with them for 8 weeks marching. I became the cadence caller. I was I hate to say this, but I kind of excelled when I got to prison. I became the big brother of the unit, of Charlie, what they call it, Charlie unit. Ended up doing intake when people would come in. I would help them get their paperwork done, get them situated, stuff like that. I was kind of the person they went to for guidance when I first got there. And I ended up graduating out of that boot camp and then went on to the next unit, which was basically prison. So, um, like I said, I had to choose. I couldn't run with my gang. I had to run with the natives. I started out my first 2 months there, became sergeant of arms. And then eventually, when I got to Unit 2, I moved up to vice president. So I was second in charge there. So I kind of, and the natives there ran the yard. So we kind of had a, I eventually started working in laundry, moved it up to the head of laundry. Became very important on the yard because I get everybody's information as they come in, what gang they're from, what their charges are. So everybody comes to me for this information. So I became very needed on the yard because I was the first contact with people when they first get there. But other than that, it was prison. Gangs ran the facility, and I just tried to stay busy as much as I could, and try to stay out of trouble while I was there, so I could get out.
So now you're released from jail. Where do you go from there?
When I got out of prison in 2021, I came home with the idea of I was going to stay straight and stay out of the gang life and try to live a normal life. I ended up having a job as soon as I got out, but it wasn't long before I was right back using methamphetamines again. And at this time, a new synthetic drug was coming onto the market called fentanyl. I stayed away from it for a little bit, but already being a opiate addict in the past, wasn't long before I was using it too. My house had ended up getting raided. We lost our house, our car. They found 1,000 fentanyl pills, which my buddy, who Drew, got 11 years in penitentiary for distribution of fentanyl. So we ended up losing our house. Luckily, I didn't catch any more charges on that. I could have went right back to prison.
That's them apartments or what?
Right. So now me and my brother are homeless on the street, bouncing from house to house. He eventually gets arrested and goes to jail, and then I didn't follow. I followed pretty shortly behind him. I was arrested again. I did 9 months in jail, and then ended up being offered able to go to rehab at First Step in Oklahoma City, which I took the offer and went. I did 6 months there. That's when I decided that maybe I should try this sober thing out for a while, and found God and learned about AA and started turning my life around a little bit. And now I'm July 21st will be my 1 year mark. I've been sober for a year.
So you sober now? How's life been so far?
Oh, it's been great, man. All these relationships that I've lost in the past, coming back. My kids are back in my life. My mother, my family are really supportive. I have a really supportive family, which has helped me out tremendously in this sober life, because the best thing you can have is support. And luckily, through the grace of God, I have a supporting family, and they're all sober people too, so I didn't have to go right back into that drug lifestyle this time. And things have been looking up for me. I wrote some goals down while I was in rehab of becoming a welder and going to welding school. I'm in welding school now. I have a 12-week class I'm fixing to finish, and hopefully I'll be getting a welding job after that. So one of my goals are coming true. So that's where I'm at now, right now in life. I'm in sober living. So I did 9 months in jail, 6 months sober, rehab, inpatient rehab, and now I'm doing 6 months sober living. And I have 3 months left, and I will be done. And I'm still on probation for 2 years, but.
So what you want to tell our followers?
I want to tell my followers, our followers here, that if you're stuck in that lifestyle and you feel like you can't get out, if if I can do it, anybody can do it. I've been at the bottom of the barrel. I've been at the top of the barrel. I've overcome all this, and recovery is possible. You just got to put in a little work, and that God is number one. Once you find Him, the rest is easy, man. After that, because He's going to help you through all the things you have to come to overcome, and it's not easy. It takes a little work, but what you get out of recovery, what you put into it. And the biggest thing I found that is helping recovery for me is helping others and sharing my story. And if I could just turn one person's life around, then I feel like I did what I was set out to do. And it's been an awesome road. Things have completely changed around for me. My life used to be a living hell, and now it's not. I've amended all my relationships. Things are just going really good for me.